Warning: this podcast contains conversations about real-life subjects and topics. We do not claim to heal, cure, or fix any of your problems. We do claim to serve a God who can. We are not financial advisors, doctors, lawyers, or offering any business or health advice. We do offer prayer, hope, and a conversation that may help you process what you're going through. Side effects may include love, peace, and joy, along with laughing, crying, and occasional bursts of hallelujah and amen. This show is a Story Ministry production, broadcasting live from the Beat Studio in Round Rock, Texas.
All right, we're live with Fellow. Today we're going to be talking about foster. Do you care? We're going to be talking about the foster system and actually a lot about what goes on in it, because I don't think a lot of people are aware. A lot of times we watch these movies and we see these old orphanages and maybe think that's it, but it's really not. The real system is a little bit different. There are good foster parents out there, but a majority of them, I think, could possibly be in it for the wrong reasons, not necessarily to help people. Because I have known some families that take on multiple foster kids, and I'm pretty sure they get paid for it. And then it kind of always made me think, because it almost seemed like they just almost sometimes get as many as they can, which I know some of them do have a heart, and there can be some problems. But what are your thoughts on that, Fellow?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the parents and who they are, whatnot. Like you were saying, a lot of homes will, try to take in as many as they can. So if they have like 10 to 15, I'm saying, like that's, money.
Yeah.
I'm saying, for them. With my experience, I lived in homes that, really wanted it for the money, I'm saying, wasn't in it for the kids. But also you have to have like a heart and desire and a love, like you were saying, to do so.
Yeah.
And, kind of. But if you don't, then I mean it's really not for you. But
How many homes would you say you've been through? Because I feel like a lot of times it isn't just one home. It feels like you get sometimes moved to multiple homes, and that can kind of be hard too. So how many homes have you been in? And can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so for me, I'd probably say a total of like 12 to 15 different homes.
12 to 15?
Yeah.
Do what span? Like just from youth to 18 or?
From 10 to 18 years old. So I was in the system for about 9 years.
Wow.
And so, I would be in a home sometimes for a few months to 6 months to a year. But I don't think I actually stayed in a home longer than a year.
Wow.
But then there was also the 3 failed adoptions that I had. One in St. Louis, Missouri, one in Ohio, and one in the state of Washington.
How does that work?
What do you mean?
Can you explain that? Like you said, 3 home adoptions or something. What is that exactly?
3 failed adoptions. So pretty much it's, there's a family that, is interested in you. In my case, I was on like a website, so there's a website for all these kids, and, they'll tell about, the kid a little bit, the age, the name, and kind of like, where they grew up and stuff like that. And if they're interested, they kind of like go forth, speak with the case manager, speak with the case aide. There's a bunch of paperwork and that stuff, that goes to. With my experience, though, the one in St. Louis, when the ball started rolling, I got visitations with them. Meaning I would fly out there all the time, to visit. Sometimes it was a weekend. Then from a weekend, then it went like a week. Then it was like 2 weeks. And, so on and so forth.
What was your experience with that? Do you think most of those were good, or do you think, like, what happened? Why didn't you end up staying there, like, fully getting adopted or staying there full-time, or what happened? Was it just not the fit, or were you not feeling comfortable with it, or was it them not feeling comfortable, or what was it? A combination of both, maybe, or?
I'd probably say it was both, but I think a lot of it had to do with me, myself, and I, because of that attachment disorder that I had. What I'm saying? So it's like I would see these people getting close to me, and then when they would start getting close to me, I would start, pushing them away. Not just that, but I also had an experience with one foster adopt home that said that if we were to adopt you, that you no longer have a family. Your family that you have no longer exists. We are your family.
Wow. That's pretty hard to say to a kid or a young person. I mean, it's already confusing enough just being a kid, just being a person, let alone a teenager, and then somebody telling you something like, hey, you don't have any more of your family, they're gone. Because I see some. I've had some friends that adopted, and they actually want to be open and share, like, connect the kid they're adopting with their actual biological family if they want to see them or meet them. Which not all of them do, but I think that's awesome when they have that option. But for them to tell you as a kid, hey, you're not going to have any more family. The people that you've known aren't going to be there anymore, and we are it. And I mean, that must be tough as a kid. It's kind of tough to hear, but just even being experiencing it as a kid, that must be rough. And it's also enough going through, and I could see that because sometimes, even as an adult, I mean, I struggle with some stuff too. Just I wasn't abandoned like that, or an adult, or like in the foster system, but like just with a lot of my relationships and stuff, just always like seemed not to end that well. I'd start to get to know somebody, and like just an example, I went to elementary school, but the elementary school I went to, it only went up to 5th grade. So then all my friends lived in the city, and they went to the other school, and I went to a different one. So I had to make all brand new friends. Middle school, I finally make it through, make a couple friends, and then I had to go to high school, and then my parents got a divorce, and I moved from that high school. So any friends I had then, boom, they were gone. So anybody I ever got close with, now it wasn't like you had to move 12 or 15 times in a couple years, but for me, I feel that a little bit. So if I had to do it more, I could even imagine more of that because it felt like every time I got close to somebody, and even recently I went through a divorce, and I felt like the one person who should have never left me or left me or leave me or whatever, she ended up filing a divorce, and now I'm by myself. And it's just like, once again, I had the same thing going on. And it just seems like it's the cycle that I can't break. And that could definitely cause some problems and trust issues and everything else. But I could see how you get close and you need to push people away because I feel it just for other things. If there's something I'm not used of or I'm struggling with, and I don't know how to handle it, sometimes it's easier for me to push away or get myself out of it than try to deal with it because it's something new, it's something I don't want to deal with. Or I start having this thing, and my buddy was telling me about this, that he was in a hurricane at one point, like probably 10 years ago or whatever when he was a kid, and for like 2 or 3 years afterwards, if there was a storm, he always felt like the hurricane was coming. And if there's even a little breeze or something, he always felt like if it was still like happening, like it was pretty traumatic for him. So every time he went through that, he got stuck in that same scenario or same situation to where he was feeling trapped. Do you feel that a lot, or do you feel that at times even now that like, I know you're in a relationship, you have a fiance, and you're about to get into a relationship that's serious. Now, we deal with abandonment and we have these issues, but now you're about to like fully commit to somebody who you love and that loves you. And that's the ultimate like trust like fall right there. Like, come on, let's do it. So what's going on in your mind there? How do you feel about that? Because I don't want that to hinder you, but I think like talking about it, we can maybe, just think about it, maybe help other people too, because I don't think you're the only one who's went through a foster system now that maybe is going through a relationship or struggling with relationships because nobody's ever shown us how to be a man. Nobody's ever shown us what a healthy relationship looks like. I've seen what relationships look like, but they're from the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not necessarily healthy. So how do you feel about that aspect of it?
Man, obviously, very scared, nervous. I pretty much, I guess right now, I just kind of take it, one day at a time. It's not easy, not easy at all. Especially, in my situation, being abandoned by, my biological family, the foster home, I'm in the same situation, like around the streets as well, what I'm saying? I've been in incarceration from the age of 11 to 30, in and out. So it being in this relationship, don't get me wrong, I'm excited and I'm happy. I am. But I mean, there's, that, is if I say something, is she gonna leave me? If I do this, if I do that, is she gonna leave me? If I look at her wrong, if I do this, if I do that, is she gonna leave me? And yeah, there's times that I feel like I have to put my a guard up. You know what I'm saying? Which I probably shouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, there's that like what if? You know what I'm saying?
That's the hard thing about a relationship, though. Sometimes to really love and show love and receive love, a lot of times you have to release those and remove those guards because those guards are things that we've put up in the past to protect us. And one thing I used to do is like, it was easier for me to harden my heart and just like not care than it was to care. But then what I realized is I couldn't fully love because most of my heart was blocked off. A lot of it was, and it was to protect myself at one season, and a lot of it was when I was younger. That's what it was for, is to protect me. But now I'm older, and I have kids, and I'm finding myself causing the same problems I dealt with because I was holding on to stuff or trying to do stuff the same way. You know, the things I was using to protect myself as a kid now are actually hurting my kids or hurting my relationships, where it was actually protecting me. So at one point in my life, it was protection. But now at this point and stage in my life, it's actually hurting me, my relationships, not only with my kids, my family, everybody that I was around, is because I just struggle with a lot of things and I didn't really know how to process it, and I didn't really like know how to handle it. So I just kind of ignored it, and I kept building up stuff and I kept building it up, and I eventually hardened my heart to where, and this is how I learned how to explain it kind of a little bit, is like, at first I was building these walls up and they were protecting me. These walls protected me and I kept building them up, and I built them up all around my heart. And the next thing I knew is I didn't build a door and I didn't build any windows, so I was trapped. So this wall of protection that I built at one time actually ended up being a prison for me, and it trapped me in because it was too many walls and too many things built up and no way out. And that's the problem, is there was no way out. I trapped myself in my own mind. I trapped myself in my own heart. Trapped myself with my own thoughts. And just seeing you go into this new season, what do you think are some ways that somebody like you or even yourself could start like removing some of these walls, just enough so you could even just crawl out? I'm not saying to make a window or a door. I'm just saying like maybe remove a couple so there's just some exit, so eventually we don't keep trapping ourselves, because we trap ourselves, especially as men. We don't talk about stuff. We don't deal with stuff. And like you were saying, like that hurt me just for you to even say that. Like, what if you say the wrong thing? Because I felt that way before. Like, what if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing? Or what if I cough at the wrong time? I'm saying that's just an extreme. But like, what if that happens and these things are going through and it's not really healthy for a relationship? Because how are you supposed to communicate with your wife when you always feel like you're going to say the wrong thing? How are you going to talk to her about something about how you feel when you don't know how to express yourself? And sometimes for me in the past, it's been through alcohol, and I could talk and tell you everything, but to tell you the truth, I'm probably going to tell you too much or keep talking after that, and then it's just going to kind of ruin it too. So what are your thoughts on that? Like maybe some things that you could try to do to release some of those, I guess, walls that we've built up a little bit, even if it's just a crack.
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me is communication. Like I had said last night in that men's group that I also, just started, because I feel like, communication is, one of the keys. If I'm not open, then it's going to be hard, for her and I to be able to talk. My other one is, being able to reach out to, a good friend or a close friend or, a mentor, somebody that I can reach out to. And I'm, reading books, just these are things that, for me, what I'm saying?
I know you're working on a book too, so one thing I found is just writing, even like sometimes just writing. And what I did even with my first book, honestly, I'd feel stuff right. I'd write. Honestly, it was in my phone, and I'd write, and I started to keep track towards like more recent when I'm working on other books. But I started writing. Sometimes I realize I write 500 to 1,000 words, like just in a one set down, just because I'm trying to express myself and trying to express how I feel and just trying to write it out. And that helped me process it, but it also helped me express myself when I was talking, because I actually thought it through a little bit before I just said something. Because me, and you already know this, I like just to talk. So then sometimes I'm not really thinking it through, and I'm just talking and talking. But when I actually wrote it, I'd actually think things through, and I actually process it myself. And sometimes, I'll tell you the truth, the way I was feeling was kind of stupid or kind of childish in a sense. And then I start writing it out. I'm like, you know what, we don't need to add that part. Then I just go like to the core of it, like, hey, this is what it is, and I really try to get to the root, because I could add on so much other stuff to it and just dress it up to where at the end of the day, it's just like, you know, at the real root is just this, and I was hurt, and or this or that, and it allowed me to communicate in a better way. I like what you're saying, just kind of recognizing. First thing is awareness. Like um, they say a lot in recovery is awareness, right? When you're going through the 12 steps. But the thing is, what if you're not aware about the right things? What if you think that, all right, I'm aware that I'm an alcoholic and that's my problem, right? That's really not the problem. That's the solution. Like the alcohol is the solution to your problem. The deep-rooted problem is you're hurt in your heart and you struggle with abandonment and you don't know how to deal with it. And now you're trying to get into a real relationship. And now at the end of the day, you have to do all these things because there's more requirements in this relationship, what you want to do because you love your fiance so much and you love her and you have the heart for her, but there's also a lot of growth and different things going on. And sometimes it's a little bit of a conflict or sometimes a little bit of a struggle too. So
Right.
let's talk about that, like the season of like growing, because I feel like the foster system hurts you a lot as a kid just from the way that it sounds and has conditioned you a lot the way you think.
Right.
And from everybody I've talked to, from even when I first met you, there's been tons of growth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like there's about to be more growth because when you unite with somebody, you become one with them. And I heard this thing the other day, it's not two halves make a whole, two come together to make one. Which you think, all right, two halves would come together to make a whole, and instead of like one and one coming together, that makes two, but you're taking two together to make one. That's what you guys are doing. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
That's
No,
pretty
I like
deep.
that.
That's pretty deep. But yeah. So let's talk about like some of the struggles you had, just even relationships. What are the relationships that you saw in the foster system? Because this is what we're basing a lot of our relationships off of, right? Of what we saw when we were kids growing up. So my relationship is seeing how my parents treated each other and acted with each other. And to tell you the truth, I thank God that my divorce wasn't like theirs because they still don't talk to this day. And it was ugly and they dragged all the kids with them everywhere they went. So what were your and if my example of love was from my parents, I'm telling you, that could have actually been the root of my problem now that I think about it. So instead of talking about me today, though, what do you think, or what were some of the things that you saw how to have a relationship when you were in, like growing through foster? Because you lived through like 12 homes or 15 homes within a couple of years. So you must have seen all types of relationships, even from the people telling you, hey, if you come to this family, you're only a part of this family, which was he that way with his wife? Or was that the wife telling you? Is she that way with her husband and other kids and everybody else? Like that sounds pretty like controlling and like unloving and everything too. So like if this is who taught you how to love, like think about it like, all right, Faith, your fiance, if you're with me, you can't love your parents anymore. You can't love this. And some guys do that. Some guys do it. So what are some of the examples of love that you have seen through this foster and relationships? Not just love, but relationships.
Yeah. When I was in the system, I like you said, I seen, different types of love. Some homes, it, it was pretty much, what would you say? It was like a love-hate type relationships. Then there was some, what I'm saying, that were, they actually did love each other. And, they did the best that they could to love us. And then there were some that, like their love was to, pretty much put us or keep us in our rooms.
Discipline.
Yeah.
That's love.
There were some homes that, they would, take us out, on vacation and do stuff like that. But if I was to be honest, I would say when I was in the system, I probably did not, what I probably was not shown, what real love is. I don't even think I even really seen, what true love is. It's just, kind of sad, but, it is what it is. But, yeah, when you're in the system, there's not a lot of, with my experience, there wasn't a lot of love, shown. And if there was, obviously I didn't see it. But again, like, love comes in, different shapes, forms, and whatnot. But there's times that I wish I was, shown, what true love is. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm 33 now, you know, and I'm, you know, still learning and growing what love is, you know. It's you know, it's kind of like a hit and miss, but you know, like I say, you know, I'm learning and growing. And my fiance is as well. You know, we're both learning together what love is.
That's good.
You know, we're really learning from each other. I'm learning, you know, from her. She's learning from me. But I feel like, you know, nowadays, you know, love is just not love anymore. You know?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of it's transactional love, and I always say it's like there's something to it. How do you perform? Like if you're performing good, people love you, right? That's how it is at jobs and a lot of friends and everything. Like if you got the money, you got the house, you got the car, you got the boat, all your friends love you. But the minute you go bankrupt, ain't nobody want to help you or come over and move or help you do anything or let you stay on their couch, right? But it's all transactional. Even love, it's like if you're doing this and you're providing and you're doing this, it just can't be love because we love you. And that's one thing I really started looking at is how can we start loving people more, because I feel like it's hard for us, but I could tell you, like, it even hurts me, and I don't even want to say this, but, like, sometimes I had a struggle at one point in my life. Like, I have a stepson, but I consider him my own son, my real son. And I have my 3 other boys that are my biological. And at some point, I asked myself, and it's a stupid question, like, and it wasn't just with the stepson to my biological sons, but there was, like, the question there, like, can I love him as much as my biological sons? And I could just imagine, like, a foster parent, like, can you love another kid or somebody else as much as if they came from you or if they can't? I believe you can, because now I have figured I can, and I do love my oldest son more, and I mean not more, but just as much as my younger sons. But it's all different ways because he's older and they're younger, and I used to even struggle with my own kids, like, do I have a favorite? Do I not have a favorite? The baby's always kind of the favorite. I'm just going to put that out there. But just like going through the foster system, though, like, that would be hard for me to conceive. Like, there's a boy down the street that he lost his dad about a year and a half ago to COVID, and it just hit his family like out of nowhere. One night, I was actually messaging and planning a sleepover with my son with the dad. Next day, my son calls the friend to see if he could come over, and the kid tells us, like, my dad died. Just like that. And, like, it took my breath away. I was crying. I was also, like, begging God, please let me help him. But for him, I was able to, like, he comes everywhere with him, and I honestly do love him like a real son. But I feel like it's during the circumstances and situations, too, to where are all these people's hearts, like, really just for the foster kids? Or is it a lot for the money? Because to go through 12 homes seems like something was off there. Like, I mean,
I think, like I said, with my experience, at least with my experience, I feel like most of the ones I lived in, you know, were for the money. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't for the kids, you know? So like I say, you know, the more kids you bring in, the more money you get.
and I don't want to talk bad about the foster system and say everybody's just out there for the money, but I do want people to be aware of. I did know a family in California, and I think they had probably like 7 or 8 foster kids, and I felt like it almost became a paycheck for them because I think they got $1,000 or $2,000 per kid per month, maybe more. Yeah. And then you add that up times 5 or 10, they're making like 10, 20, 30,000. This is like a full business here. Like, plus you get them to cook and clean and all these other things because of different ages. And I'm not talking about it. There is some good foster families, but we also need to be aware as people of what's going on out there in the system, because we as people have the opportunity to go out there and be a foster family. But we don't try to, if it's for the money, I try to discourage you to even do it in the first place. If it's for your heart and you have a heart for people, and you got to realize if you're taking on a foster child, it's not going to be easy because it's not your child, first of all, and they've gone through usually some type of bad situation or circumstance. It's not like a perfect family with a perfect baby came up and said, here, take my perfect child so you could just go live your perfect life. It's usually somebody who's been through a circumstance or a situation that has usually been pretty bad. It's usually not a good one, that they probably going to have some problems. And, like, some of them, to tell you the truth, are even, like, drug babies. that they have some addiction just from being born. Like they were, I'm not happy to say, but I have a nephew that is a heroin baby. His parents were doing drugs and all that, and pretty much the baby's mom's sister ended up adopting and being the foster mom, but that's still the family. So, but it's still hard out there, and there's a lot of things, but you do have the opportunity to go out there and be a foster family. And what's one thing you could say? Because I know we've talked before, and you said that you'd eventually want to adopt, and you would like to do that. So what's one thing you could say, to foster parents out there right now, not only to foster parents out there right now, but to people who are out there maybe thinking about, hey, I could be a foster parent. I could maybe step in. I could maybe do this. What's one thing you could help say, like, to help them be, because I'll tell you the truth, it's hard for me to be a parent, period. But a foster parent, how can they be a good foster parent to somebody who has struggled through their life and maybe still struggles? And all they really need is love. Because to tell you the truth, if they don't find love at some point, by the time they get 18, they're going to pretty much get out of the foster system, and then they're just on their own. And a lot of these people end up on the streets, homeless, on drugs and everything else because they didn't find that person who cared for them. It was about a paycheck, and now they're used up. And the sad thing is, like once they hit 18, all that money doesn't keep coming in, right? So these parents used up all these kids while they were young instead of saving it for them and giving it to them or sharing it with them. They used it, and once that money ran out, they got rid of these kids and just brought in new ones. So what's something you could say to help encourage, somebody who's thinking about being a foster parent or somebody that just wants to be better? You've been through it, so you have some advice. So what's something you could share?
Yeah, I'd probably say at the end of the day, at least, for sure think about it, you know what I'm saying? And, that might take, weeks, it might take months, you know what I'm saying? But again, at the end of the day, you have to have the heart, the desire, and the love, to do so.
Yeah.
I remember talking to a friend of mine, and I told him I wanted to do, foster to adopt. And he was like, well, there's a lot to go into it. And I was like, well, I understand. I get that. Because, again, like I know the in and outs, the ups and downs, and the good and bad about it. So it's like you're not telling me anything that I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, you want to, do it, you know what I'm saying, to not just to make yourself feel good, but for that, kid that comes in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want them to know, hey, like, when they walk in, like, they have a home, whether it's, temporary or full, and you have to, it's, I say this, but, you have to love, kids, because there's people out there that, really have kids, and they they wish they didn't have kids.
Yeah.
Or, they wish they, didn't have kids. So, I mean, you have to want to have kids. You have to love kids. You know what I'm saying? And you have to learn, to love yourself. And I feel like that's a big one. And I'm learning that too myself. But you have to learn to love yourself before you can love, somebody else's kids. Because like you were saying, like it's not easy.
Yeah.
You're not taking somebody else's kid, and you know what I'm saying? And because, you don't know, like you were saying, like it could be like a drug baby or, whatever the case may be. When I came in the system, I was physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abused by my father. And, I within that, period of time that I was in there, I didn't trust no man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember going to the doctor and I had to do a physical, and I remember running out that doctor's office, you know what I'm saying? Because I did not trust no man. Don't get me wrong, even nowadays, I sometimes struggle with that, but not that, bad as I did when I was young.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough thing to struggle with and to deal with, man. I mean, it's a big thing. How are you supposed to have a functioning, successful life when you've been through so much? And, how are you supposed to make it through when nobody's really talking about this stuff? Because a lot of these people don't care, and a lot of the people that are in the foster system that have been out of it, a lot of them don't have any place to go speak up or anybody to really listen to them because they feel like they're less than wanted because 15 homes in so many years, your own dad abuses you and does stuff like that, like, where are you supposed to find the value? How are you supposed to love yourself? And that's a struggle, I think, for a lot of people. But we're going to wrap up this episode. We're definitely going to keep doing more because I think this is a huge subject to talk about. And I think there's a lot of people in the system that need help, and a lot of people in foster that just don't have direction. And hopefully with Fellow helping them out and kind of guiding them, he could help a lot of you guys. So you can go ahead and pray us out and just go from there. Lord Jesus, we thank you so much just for every foster kid that is possibly listening, God. We ask that you open their ears and just let Fellow's words just speak life into them, God, because they struggle, Lord, and there's so much hurt and so much pain and so much things that they need to process that sometimes we don't even know where to start, God. And just by hearing people like Fellow and his experience, God, it just opens up. It gives people hope because they know that somebody else is talking about it. Somebody else is starting to process it. Somebody else has made it to this age and this far and has a relationship and is about to get married. And I could do that too. And we ask that you just speak hope into them, God, and that you just fill them with your word and your life, God. And we thank you so much just for using Fellow on this podcast and just for using his whole family and blessing his wife and blessing him, God, and blessing his future wife, fiance now, and that you just fill them with your word, God. And you just keep using them, God, because they're such good people and they have such a heart, Lord, and it's just been hurt. It's been hurt for a long time. So we ask that you restore that, Lord, and every listener that you restore their heart. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.